and welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. On the show tonight, as the Prime Minister heads to Kashmir next week, the shadow of fake encounters looms large. Is it time to rein in security forces? Also, as controversies over Rajniti and the book on Sonia Gandhi grow, is the Congress a little too touchy about the Gandhis? Joining us on the show tonight, the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah, who joins us from Srinagar, General VP Malik, the former Chief of Army Staff, who's with us here in Delhi, Abhishek Singhvi, the national spokesperson of the Congress Party, well-known human rights lawyer Vrinda Grover is with us, and the editor-in-chief of Outlook, Mr. Vinod Mehta, is with us as well. First on the show tonight, on Monday, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh will visit the Kashmir Valley, where he is expected once again to reach out to all groups who shun violence. But the visit is already overshadowed by the latest fake encounter scandal that has rocked the army. The story of 3 young innocent men allegedly killed in cold blood and passed off as terrorists. The question is, will there be justice this time? Because in so many similar cases in the past, even when the army has been indicted by the police, no action has been taken. Is Dr. Manmohan Singh's Mission Kashmir futile until these injustices are addressed? Bringing us to our first question tonight, is it time to rein in security forces? Let me first go across to Omar Abdullah in Srinagar. Omar, what do you think the people's expectations are? Not the state governments, but the people's expectations in Jammu and Kashmir from this visit next week by the Prime Minister?
Well, obviously, I think the people will expect some sort of indication as to the intention of the Government of India to kickstart the stalled dialogue process between the centre and the state, and not the state government, but I mean the various political voices, both mainstream and otherwise. Obviously, some sort of indication from the Prime Minister as to the thinking of the Government of India about some of the issues that have come up within the state, development and political, and let's see. This is what I think the people expect, and I think the state government's expectations are pretty much on the same lines.
But in a sense, hasn't that already been very shaky? The Hurriyat has already said it's not going to talk to the centre. There was this quiet dialogue that the Home Minister attempted with sections of the separatist camp earlier this year, which completely flopped. So there seems to be a perception that things really haven't been handled very well by Delhi until now.
I don't think it was Delhi's fault that the quiet dialogue didn't remain quiet. I think there was a concerted effort made in certain quarters to out the dialogue process, and that's what it fell victim to. That having been said, I think attempts at reaching out to certain sections of the Hurriyat conference using the back channels have continued, and if sooner rather than later, we hope that those back channel efforts will realize the results that we all hope they will.
Omar, the periodic killings, it seems, of innocent people by security forces is always a setback to any peace initiative in the state. The latest encounter, again, making headlines, generating anger. Now, are there doubts about other recent encounters as well that have taken place along the line of control, as some reports suggest?
Well, obviously there would be doubts. This is the problem, where a handful of people for short-term gains are willing to sacrifice the long-term interest not only of the force that they represent, but of everybody else. Obviously there will be serious repercussions, and doubts will emerge. J&K police has been flooded with complaints and inquiries about encounters now going back more than 5 years, 6 years, in some cases 8 years. And we've dug up bodies, we've verified whether those encounters have been genuine or not, and really this has put a lot of additional work on an already overburdened police force, because a whole host of questions are being asked about encounters that have taken place as to whether they are genuine or not.
And so you're actually reinvestigating all the complaints that you're getting?
Every complaint that has been made to the J&K police after this Machil encounter, the police has looked into it and has satisfied the complainant that whatever deaths so far have taken place other than the Machil one have been the result of genuine encounters.
But there is a question mark still over some other encounters. That's what you're saying. Those still have to be verified.
I'm saying that almost every encounter, unfortunately, that has taken place now has question marks being posed by people, and it is our duty to address those questions.
Omar, please do stay with us. I'd like to get General Malik in here. So, You know, the army has been in Kashmir now for what, 20 years. Why does this still happen?
Look, firstly, I'm personally against deploying the army in civil areas for such a long time. It's neither good for the army nor for the country as a whole. But of course, in this situation, we were forced. Yeah. That is why I keep opposing deployment of army even for the Maoist insurgency. But coming to, let me tell you that the track record of the army on human rights of Indian Army is today, I can say it very confidently, is amongst the best in the whole world. But having said that, I'm not denying that there would be some, there has been some aberrations and nobody can condone human rights violation. Particularly of the incident that you have mentioned now, I think it's a terribly disgusting incident if it has taken place. And if it can be proved, I would be the first one to recommend the harshest punishment given to those people who have this thing. But as the Chief Minister himself said, that these are the kind of things which encourage people to start asking all kinds of questions. Please don't forget that in J&K, a very large number of civilians, including not so well off civilians, they work alongside the army as porters, as pony drivers, and hosts of other jobs. So this second incident that has now come out just a few days ago, 2-3 days ago, I'm quite surprised. I mean, how is it that suddenly these kind of incidents have started happening? Of course, as the Chief Minister has rightly suggested, I think we need to investigate these issues. And if there is somebody who has done it deliberately, these are not...
I think the question, sir, and this is a question I'd like to ask the Chief Minister as well, is that there is this lack of justice that even in past cases when the army has been indicted, in the case of Pathribal, a charge sheet filed by the CBI, no one has been held accountable for what happened.
Firstly, that any incident which is reported to the police, it has to be investigated by the army, or it is reported to the...
punished for it.
It has to be just like, you cannot punish somebody unless you have evidence against him. How do you punish somebody? You punish somebody when you find that so-and-so has committed this murder or this act.
But in Pathribal, there's a CBI charge sheet. There's a CBI charge sheet.
Against whom?
Against army officers for staging a fake encounter.
No,
but the army is hidden behind the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and said...
No, there is no. Please, Armed Forces Special Powers Act has got a different connotation, and it's not a question of... Armed Forces Special Powers Act allows somebody, provides a legal cover to somebody to fire if somebody else is carrying a weapon or he is violating law and order, etc. Those are 4 conditions very, given out very clearly.
I'll come to that, so I'll just come to that.
Can I just answer the question which you asked, General Malik? Why does this happen over and over again? And there are 2-3 reasons why it happens, and if those reasons are not addressed, which are not being addressed currently, they will continue. Pathribal, Chhattisgarh, nobody has been tried. It is one thing to say that the army will not condone. Charge sheets have been filed. The Armed Forces Special Powers Act requires a sanction from the central government in order to prosecute anybody from the armed forces. That sanction has not been given by the Home Ministry. It's not only true for fake encounters. They have identified through the inquiry, named the officers. In fact, the Pathribal encounter, the Gandarbal encounter, which actually involved the police of Jammu and Kashmir, there the trial is proceeding because the permission has been granted by the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In the case of enforced disappearance against the policemen involved. Yes. In the case of enforced disappearances, where the case of Parveena Ahangar is well known, again a judicial inquiry. The High Court says give sanction to prosecute 3 named officers of the army. This case has now been pending for 20 years. Sanction does not come. Sanction is required by the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Sir, unless that is removed,
firstly, you mentioned Chhattisgarh. I don't accept that was committed by the army. That particular incident, I don't know why.
No, somebody mentioned Pathribal.
I think that's
that's not an inquiry.
Coming to the army issues a statement there is transparency is there, how many people have been punished for whatever human right violation they would have done. It is published. I don't think any countries do that. But here, I don't think anybody, I mean, I don't condone anybody for violation of human rights, and he must be punished for it. But if you don't have direct evidence against that person, you cannot, how do you punish him under the law?
But you know, Omar, when I hear that, you know, there has been encounter after encounter. In fact, we have a graphic which is playing on air right now as I speak of, I think, about 6 or 7 encounters where the army has been indicted and yet no action has been taken. And I'm starting from the year 2000. So this lack of justice, is that the biggest problem, that it appears that the army in particular is not accountable for these aberrations?
I think it's important to remember that justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. And I think in these cases, the biggest problem is the lack of transparency. Unfortunately, because of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and because of the protection that is built into this for the armed forces, the army is the judge, the army is the jury, and the army is the hangman. And therefore, there is an absence of transparency, the result of which is that people have lost faith in the system. People do not believe that justice will be done. And that's why you have the sort of reactions that you have to the Armed Forces Special Powers Act and to the armed forces as a whole. It's one of the problems that we're dealing with, which is why we understand that the armed forces require a legal framework within which to function. I think the moment that legal framework also starts giving you immunity, that's when the problem arises, which is why we are talking to the government of India, which is why a lot of northeastern state governments are talking to the government of India, that while the Armed Forces Special Powers Act is required, it needs to be amended so that it is more transparent, it is more accountable, and that people have more faith in the system.
General Malik, here is the Chief Minister saying very candidly that there is a lack of transparency and the Armed Forces Special Powers Act therefore is a problem.
Look, I am for transparency. So I support the Chief Minister when he is saying that, particularly somebody who has committed the violations deliberately. Why not? But talking about Armed Forces Special Powers, let's understand that there are 4 conditions, under para 4, it says that anybody who is carrying weapons and who is violating law and order, you can fire at him to the extent that he can also be killed. Second is, it permits a person, an NCO or a JCO, to enter somebody's house to arrest a person or to search that house. Third is, if there is a bunker or a place where the militants can be trained and they are using it for carrying out their activities, that can be destroyed. So if you don't want the army to do this, don't have the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. You don't need it. Let me first explain, Vrinda. So it is there to provide a legal cover. If these requirements are not there in the operations, then there is no need to have the army. But if you are having the army personnel and they have to carry out these operations to be able to support the civil administration, to be able to...
But the amendments that the Chief Minister talks about...
Well, there has been a ready commission also. They have also been discussing this matter. I mean, I'm not against amendments. All I'm saying, if you want to carry out certain amendments, but have the law which covers the kind of action that you are asking an army man to do it.
I want to draw attention to the point that was being made by the Chief Minister. The question is of immunity and grant of prior sanction before prosecution, which is actually almost amounting to an executive interference in the administration of justice insofar as the armed forces or the police personnel or public servants are concerned. That is the point that is being raised here. It's not about the powers that they have, it's about Section 7 of the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Given Reddy Committee, Administrative Reforms Committee, chaired by the present Law Minister, the report given by the present Vice President, have all said repeal the Armed Forces Special Powers Act.
Look, I am saying, please provide legal cover for the action that you want that army man to take.
But not immunity for impunity.
No, there is no immunity at all.
There is.
I'm saying there is in fact, the army law is more stringent than the civilian law. And there is no question of immunity, because any human rights violation is not in the interest of the army, and it is not in the interest of the nation. And the army is working for the nation. Just one second. Let me clarify this. All I'm saying is that if you want an army man to do a particular job in a particular manner, give him a legal cover.
Yes.
Okay. And outside, if he does something, go and fire him.
We are not being able to prosecute them.
There is no question. I am saying that so many people have been prosecuted. In my time, I know that we had so many people who had been
So why has army then said, there is a petition pending in the Supreme Court filed by the army saying this case cannot be proceeded because CBI has not taken sanction. These are actual cases pertaining to Kashmir.
I cannot talk about individual cases, but I am talking of the
a larger policy. But let me just get the rest of the panel. Abhishek Singhvi, is there a radically different approach that the centre now needs when it comes to Kashmir? You know, the Prime Minister has been very bold in his initiative with Pakistan, but when it comes to this internal discourse, you know, it doesn't really seem to be going anywhere.
You had a long discussion. Let me just make a few points, a larger perspective, and then the more narrow issue which Vidya has rightly raised. I think we have to keep in mind that mercifully after a long time, we have relative, I use the word relative, peace and tranquility in Kashmir. And that's something to be cherished. And I think all stakeholders have to be careful about creating a situation by comments or otherwise which will act as an unnecessary provocation. There is no general blanket approach. Army is not holier than thou. Army commits errors and even crimes. But equally, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. A vast majority of army men are not like that. So you have to deal with the individual cases. An aberrant army man must be punished, goes without saying.
Let me ask Vinod Mehta, what do you think the larger picture is? What do you think the Prime Minister can do differently when he goes there on Monday, given the backdrop of what's been simmering in the valley over the last few
years? See, your assumption that the Prime Minister should primarily address the human rights problem when he goes to Kashmir may not be quite right.
I'm not saying...
No, I'm saying that when he goes there, what message will he take to the people of the valley or to Kashmir?
But it's a genuine grievance.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that since 1987, we had a raging insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, the Pakistanis say about how many? 300,000, 600,000 troops are there, living cheek by jowl with the civilian population. Human rights excesses, etc., are going to happen. The problem, that's inevitable. You will never get a situation where you have such a large concentration of forces and living close and it doesn't happen. What we have to see is to minimize those. And when they happen, then we must have an impartial, or the people of Jammu and Kashmir must think that there is an impartial mechanism which investigates these matters and brings them to justice. That second part is lacking. Now, what I am saying, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, when the Prime Minister goes, will also be very interested, perhaps even I may be so bold to say more interested, in seeing what kind of development programs the centre is bringing to the valley and to the whole state.
Best way to reduce even or to eliminate even these aberrations is to have good governance, good administration, so that you don't require army. That is the way you should be. So please don't start blaming the armed forces and so on, so on. So I am saying I am against employment of the army in such jobs. And earlier days we used to have a rule, if anybody employed army for more than 10 days, they have to take permission from the, now you are keeping those men there day in and day out, and you are making them do all kinds of these things. When it doesn't happen, then you start asking them. So, look, I don't condone human rights violation. I am totally with what Abhishek and Vinod Mehta have said about the macro level picture. All I am saying is, please carry out governance, carry out development, carry out administration, so that you don't require army.
In this context, I think it's very important. In this context, it's very important to remember the current debate. There's another debate that's going on, the deployment of the army in the Naxal-infected areas. I think that is a very dangerous debate, and the public mood at the moment is also very dangerous. There's an inevitability about that. But if the human rights excesses are already taking place with the CRPF and with the other people, can you imagine what would happen if the army went in there?
Absolutely.
They don't know the terrain.
I just want to get a last word.
I tend to forget, Nidhi, that this government in the UPA 2 end years and the UPA 1 end years and the UPA 2 now, has had the largest ever package since independence. Now we're talking of the larger picture development for Kashmir. Actual concrete package in terms of infrastructure. How much was it? That is a 7-year program, of which 3 years a large amount has been implemented. You ask Mr. Abdullah, he's doing part of the implementation. Infrastructure, bridges, roads, largest ever, actually being implemented, nitty-gritty. So this is, a lot is being done for the first time.
Can I say something? Having served in jail for a very long time, earlier days, and at the moment, if you ask me, there are two issues which are most important. One is employment of young people they are there. Very large number of people are unemployed. I think the whole focus has to be to find employment for them. Second, I think the most important, get Sufism back into Kashmir, because that is also causing a lot of problem. So you should endeavor to bring back Sufism, which last so many years nobody has even paid any attention to that, so that people tolerate each other and they can live happily.
Well, I just want to add one strand to the issue of governance. We usually talk about good governance. I think in Kashmir we need to talk about just governance. Unless the element of justice is going to be there, restoring Sufism or restoring people back to anything is not going to happen. And there is clearly a huge justice deficit that we are seeing there.
Omar Abdullah, the last word to you. Do you agree with that there's a justice deficit and that's what needs to be addressed first in your state?
I think there are a lot of deficits in my state, development, trust, justice, security. There's no shortage of deficits, but I think the problem with programs like this is they tend to take a very simplistic view of very complex problems. I mean, the moment General Malik says that address development issues and the army will no longer be required, I think that's a rather simplistic view on a problem where the overwhelming majority of militants are non-Kashmiri. Now, how do these non-Kashmiri militants care whether I build a bridge or I put a railway line or I provide jobs? So there are things that we need to do. There is development that we need to do. I think the Prime Minister will be coming with a comprehensive agenda of development, of progress. I'm sure there will be a political element built into his agenda as well. But there are a number of facets to this problem. And I think it's far more complex than a half-hour discussion on a television channel will allow us for.
I know, actually we could spend the next 2 or 3 hours discussing it. Omar Abdullah, thank you very much for your time. I know you have a busy week ahead with the Prime Minister reaching there on Monday.
One point that one must remember in this context, the latest poll that was held in
by Chatham House.
And you know who commissioned that poll? Mr. Gaddafi's son. But that's a separate matter. But the findings of that poll are very interesting in terms of people's mood over there. And I think we'd be crazy as a country not to tap into that mood. There is a mood which is favorable to India.
Some 58% people, according to that poll, saying that they would like to see the line of control as the permanent border then in Jammu and Kashmir.
Only 2% favor Pakistan.
General Malik, thank you so much for coming in tonight on this. We'll take a quick break, but still ahead, come to the next big story of the week, the controversy surrounding the Congress party and censorship. Is the Congress too touchy about its political leaders, and does the BJP really have a right to criticize them? Welcome back. The other big story of the week. First, Congress leaders previewed the Prakash Jha film Rajniti and objected to certain parts of it, apparently because Katrina Kaif's character resembles Sonia Gandhi. Now there's a row over a book being described as a dramatized biography on Mrs. Gandhi by Spanish writer Javier Moro. Despite a legal notice from the Congress for slander, the publishers really are going ahead with the India launch. The book, in fact, is already a hit in Italy and in Spain. That brings us to our second issue tonight, protecting brand Sonia. Is the Congress too touchy about the Gandhis? And let me ask Mr. Vinod Mehta that first.
Well, no question about that. I mean, why pretend that it's not so? That they're very touchy. But I'd just like to say one thing. By the way, this book has got very interesting. It's faction, like what Norman Mailer wrote.
Fictional biography.
Fictional biography. So that's a new species that we've got here. But one of the things, don't ask me how I know this, but I know that there are people, including Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, around Sonia Gandhi, who are more loyal than the Queen. And sometimes what happens, I think she would also want some portions of the film and the book, these kind of things to be looked at, because there shouldn't be anything very blatant and explicitly which is defamatory or vulgar. But sometimes I think the courtiers perhaps overdo the act. And I think that she could live with some of the things that are in some of the things, I'm not saying all of the things, are in the book and the film. But the courtiers or her advisors feel they need to walk the extra mile. But at the end of the day, you must see that the film Rajniti has been released, and this is very good free publicity for that book that is being Mr. Xavier Morrow.
Mr. Morrow's book, yes, great.
So I mean, he gave an interview to say that thank you, the Congress Party is their publicity manager. Whenever really books brings that thing out, it will sell out like hotcakes.
Author and film critic Aruna Vasudev is with us. What's your take on this before I ask Dr. Singhvi to respond, because I know he has a lot to say.
No, I would ask me whether the...
are they too touchy? Are we too touchy in general about our political leaders, their legacies?
I think we are too touchy about everything. Everything. Anything you say is going to offend somebody, and now it's become a fashion to take it up immediately and say, why are you showing me in this light? As far as politics are concerned, of course we are much too touchy about things, and as a nation we don't seem to have any sense of humor. So if somebody does say, even if it's not very funny, at least it's meant to be funny, it's never understood, it's taken very seriously and literally. And look what happened with Shashi Tharoor, his ban of humor. It was just not acceptable.
Tharoor is in the same class as Sonia Gandhi.
No, I'm talking about a sense of humor, which is
I think Sonia Gandhi's sense of humor is better.
I think Sonia Gandhi herself
than Shashi Tharoor's humor.
Well, let me get first comments from Kiran Kher from the BJP. She joins us from Mumbai. Kiran Kher, the BJP actually criticized the Congress yesterday, for this censorship, as it were. But it's not like the BJP has been a particularly tolerant party itself. You expelled Jaswant Singh for writing a book on Jinnah because you didn't agree with it. Pazania couldn't be screened in Gujarat because elements associated with your party had a problem with it. So are both of you intolerant parties in a way?
I'll answer the second part of your question first. That is about Parzania. I believe it was the exhibitors in Gujarat who decided not to screen the film, and there was no official ban on it. Unlike the Da Vinci Code, which was officially banned by the Congress government in Punjab and other places, because the vote banks of the Christian community were going to be offended, they said. All political parties, I feel, are touchy about certain things, and the other thing you asked me was about Mr. Jaswant Singh's book.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that was a party matter. It had nothing to do with the government in power wanting a look or a dekho at something which they wanted to ban or wanted to be corrected so that their leaders would be shown in a better light. Let me tell you that when Anupam was on the censor board, he was the chief, he passed the final solution, which is a book on a documentary on post-Godhra riots by Rakesh Sharma, without a single cut. And many people felt it was a very one-sided view, but he did it anyway. He also passed the Black Friday, without a single cut, which was about the bomb blasts and the underworld and the riots in Bombay. Of course, it's another matter that he was unceremoniously removed from the post when the Congress government came into power. I personally do not believe that any political party should have their members on the censor board. I believe that the censor board should have powers to certify films. There should be no interference, there should be no censoring as such, So that's my personal
But can I ask you this? The Congress, when it comes to, let's not talk about Rajniti, the film, but this book on Mrs. Gandhi, frankly, I don't know what a fictionalized biography is. It's, it's such a strange phrase, but don't they have a point that, someone cannot take liberties with someone's life and then fictionalize them and put it in the form of a book? Or you think it's legit for to be published?
Well, let me put it this way, we're living in 2010. I was with Mr. Singhvi on a show earlier on in this year, in which we talked about voyeurism, and we said that we have a voyeur in us, all of us do. I think that a book on Mrs. Gandhi is not going to take away from her dignity or her grace in any way, but is going to add an element of humanity, of being a real person, of also combining sensuality with grace, which I think is a great quality. Why in India do we want to have deities as political figures, or even some celebrities who take friends to write so-called biographies for them, which are just sycophantic, you know. There is just a whole lot of collection of childhood pictures and the book is presented to people. I mean, you have a film like The Queen being made. You have films like showing the assassination of Mr. Bush being planned, where you actually used President Bush's clips as a part of the film, and there were no objections. So we need to get a little beyond all this. You yourself have a show called The Great Indian Tamasha, in which you make fun of every politician and film celebrity or other celebrities. You take it in great good humor. So what's wrong? I mean, so far they have wonderful to have.
Abhishek Singhvi is now dying to take all these questions because he's the man in the center of the stall.
Everybody has an opinion on a very broad brush without going to the facts. Some civil society person thinks it's courtiers acting. Some says there should be absolutely free for all. You can say what you like. Some say, oh, what's the problem? Have no defamation at all. Now look at the facts. And I ask you to consider, ultimately all things depend on the nitty-gritty of the issue concerned. Here is Mr. Moro. He has been given a notice 6-7 months ago. We have started nothing in the media. He comes to the media 3 days ago. For 7 months we have said nothing. Obviously the book is about Mrs. Gandhi. The legal notice is sent as a victim, a litigant, sends through a lawyer to a person. So to try to draw this remarkable distinction which my friend Mr. Mehta drew before he left between Mrs. Gandhi and those who advise her is ridiculous. Obviously everything is gone with her consent and knowledge. Now why is it gone? None of you read the book, not one of you. We got a manuscript from somebody 6 months ago that has more than 100 pages of quotation marks, first person accounts. Out of those 100 pages, we gave in writing 20 examples to Mr. Moro, saying in any of these 20 examples, if you have anything to substantiate, oral, documentary, or you are present. He has not replied for 7 months. 2 days ago in the Indian Express, I gave a 5-column account, which I gave 4 out of those 20. The silence of Mr. Moro, even after 2 days ago, when he got in the media, on this regard, giving substantiation for what I've quoted, is deafening and eloquent. Silence. So he does not justify. What is this oxymoron we're talking about? Biography, fictional biography. What kind of word is that? If you write about a living person, if I write about you, I have to write either only fact, or I have to take your permission to write what I want. But there is no such thing, Nidhi, known as fictional biography unless you have somebody's consent. Now a fictional biography which impairs your reputation comes under defamation. If I impair your reputation, I either have to have an authorized biography permission,
or I can
write. 1 second,
they made a film on President Bush being assassinated, death of a president.
Yes.
Okay, he's still alive.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have a problem with it in America.
No,
they made a film on the Queen.
No, the death of a president nothing to do with his life.
But they showed him, I mean,
this is to show a mythical president or a real president being mythically assassinated. Mrs. Gandhi has had a book, Rashid Khedwai's book, published. Did she take action? But problem is that my good friend Mrs. Khair or others believe that there is no law of defamation in this country. Well, let me tell you, if this book had the 100 pages about Mrs. Gandhi on any of you, what would you do? We have not censored anything. The BJP comes into it talking of saying, what is censorship? What is that?
Isn't it a pattern?
We had given legal notice 7 months ago and kept quiet.
Isn't it
Mr. Moro, who wants to make commercial gain, money, sheer greed, comes and invades the privacy of Mrs. Gandhi, goes to the media, hangs it on the high peg of censorship and freedom of speech. That's worse than the devil quoting the scriptures. Why? Without telling you that I can't substantiate a single fact. Now let me give you I can't say
I don't want to make this about just one book. Is this a pattern with the Congress? You know, let me ask you, what was the reason? Why did your political leaders have to watch Rajniti?
It's a laughable thing. I'm going to watch Rajniti today.
No, it was
I'm going to watch Rajniti today.
Censorship.
Has the government
Nehru
just 1 minute, these people are just taking leave, they're comparing apples and oranges. Rajniti and Moro's book are chalk and cheese. One is a book about a living person. Moro writes for Sonia Gandhi, of Sonia Gandhi, by Sonia Gandhi, picture of
Why did Congress leaders watch Rajniti in advance?
Rajniti is not about her. She has never banned, she has not taken notice. Nobody, Congress has nothing. A censor board has a right to give it a certificate. The press, because the BJP is saying that Congress is this or that. Now the three of your party leaders watch the film. Let's assume that. So, against the censor board, you can go and appeal. But who's buying Rajniti? Everybody is seeing Rajniti. Why do they need to screen it? Why do they need to screen the film before it's released? That's always done. Censor board, all censor boards do it. 3 members of censor board have a different view. The majority of censor board has a different view. If you are agreed by that, go and appeal. What's the connection between Moro and Moro is a book on Mrs. Gandhi yet to be published with 100 pages of defamatory material. Okay. Rajniti is not set to be there. One more thing, which Moro hasn't told you. For 6 months. We haven't talked to him. We're trying to reach him. Moro has been talking to everybody. She's talking to you as well. Yeah. For 6 months, he corresponded with us. And I write as a lawyer in this. I'm not acting for anybody except the person who's the victim. So it's not as if I'm acting on my own. By the way, his concept of threat is very peculiar because you send a legal notice to somebody is not a threat. I never met the man, I never talked to the man. I never dealt with it except a legal notice. But 6 months ago, we spent 2.5 months drafting a disclaimer at his request of 6 lines. Look at the tolerance. That with this disclaimer, each book be published. Alright, is that right? Now he backs out at the last minute. Why? Okay, I have to take a break. I want the disclaimer to apply only to the book, but I will do a film separately and I will I'm going to come to questions from the audience. We'll take a quick break. We'll get the questions from the audience to the panel on this rather interesting subject. We'll be back after this. Welcome back. We're asking whether the Congress is a bit too touchy about the Gandhis, and let's just get some questions from the audience. Ma'am.
Why can't we see what's that are there in people's faces? Why can't we grow up? Why can't we take it casually? Look at the French president and his wife. Every day something is written about them.
So you're saying we take things too seriously?
Casual about it.
We take things too seriously.
Too seriously.
Yeah. There is no comparison. We are forgetting some basic things. There is no censorship. Let's get that clear. There is no banning. One person who has been defamed, she thinks, in a book, draft of which is sent 7 months ago, has sent a legal notice. That's it. If and when the book is published, that person reserves to herself the right to take legal action. Does our law in the Constitution of India, which provides for freedom of speech and expression in 19(1)(a), make a clear exception for defamation? Does freedom of speech mean that I can slap you, I can abuse you, I can slander you? Does it mean that I can commit contempt of court? If you read 19(1)(a), there are exceptions to it. Yeah. Now, we are arguing this debate as if there is no law of defamation. As a citizen, is Mrs. Sonia Gandhi got less rights than you have? You can sue me for defamation. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi will not sue me for defamation because you will say she is a big lady. And what is the Congress doing? The Congress is a political party. It has no power to ban a book. Okay, it has no power to stop a book. It has to go to court to seek a judicial injunction. The judge will throw out my case.
Ms. Kennedy, what is it you wanted to say?
As simple as that. And who is the 1 minute Nidhi? Let me know she answers. Who is the BJP? The BJP is a party which is talking about tolerance, about free speech. They went to the streets to try to malign M.F. Hussain for a pictorial depiction. Tanzania there was a remarkable unanimity amongst all exhibitors suddenly out of the blue, without any nudge from the government.
That was an unofficial ban. Probably was an
unofficial ban is a cleverer ban.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And this is the party which expels Mr. Jaswant Singh for defaming not a living person, and not even defaming, writing a book about a dead person.
Can I respond to that? Originally my question to you.
The problem with the Congress is that they function on hypocrisy. They won't come straight out and say something. They'll have their lieutenants doing their job for them. They will have a few cuts cleverly put into Rajniti. Why the EVM machines are shown as being tampered with, this, that. They'll have those strategic cuts. But they won't come out with it full on. They will do the same with films like Kissa Kursi Ka, with films like Andhi and various other films. They are all right with Sita and other goddesses being shown without clothes. But they have a problem with the red sari because there are some human lines in it, which any human being would be bound to say when your life is being threatened, you've lost a mother-in-law and a husband to to assassinations, and you say something like, I want to go away from this country with my children. It's a very real line. You want to deify, make them out into cut-out cardboard characters. You want to make them into demigods, so that people think that these people are above everybody else. Stop doing that. We live in 2010. For God's sake, and I've already explained what you said about the BJP. They were not, there has never been a ban on anything like that.
Okay, last word now to Aruna Vasudevan and Vrinda before we end the show.
No, I think the censor board is an independent board, and obviously it is appointed by government, but it takes independent decisions. It does do that. Out of a fear or something, they might decide to go in a certain direction, but it is not an individual's choice. It is a board, and as long as the censor board is there, it does operate independently. Plus, there is recourse. If you don't agree with the decision, you can go to a higher level, and there is an appellate tribunal to which you can also go. So it is not, I think, if you're looking at the whole question of film censorship in the world, India's film censors is among the most liberal. If you look at other countries, I'm not talking of
I guess we're talking more about a political culture, and your comments on that.
I just want to say two things. One, that perhaps fictionalized biography is a new genre. We don't know. So let's leave that aside. It's welcome that the Congress is not seeking a ban. They're saying that they may sue them for defamation, which any citizen, as has been said, has a right. But I want to just underline what is this freedom of speech and expression that we're talking about. I'm told there's a documentary film which has been made by Madhur Bhandarkar on Kashmir, on the village where there are many widows. And that film has run into censorship trouble already. A lot of documentary films do run into censorship trouble in this country. What is the kind of censorship that is being exercised if we are expressing political ideology? It may be a secessionist ideology in Kashmir. It may be a Maoist ideology. The kind of censorship that is today coming in, the kind of limiting and restricting of freedom of speech through threats, whether it is a threat that the film will not be allowed to be screened, the cinema hall will be torn down, or threats that are let out by various ministries, people will be put into jail if they express certain opinions. That is the freedom of speech and expression that we need to safeguard as citizens in this country.
All right, I'm afraid we're completely out of time. I'd like to thank Kiran K, Abhishek, Singhvi, Aruna Vasudev and Vrinda for joining us tonight. Do send us your comments at ndtv.com/nidhi. I wish this debate had gone on longer, but we are completely out of time. Do join us again next week. Goodbye.